Hey everybody! Welcome to CAF Warbird Tube, the show where we talk about World War II, aviation, history, and so much more. Warbird Tube is produced by the Commemorative Air Force, the world's largest flying museum. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and honor through flight and living history experiences. The CAF began the Warbird movement more than 65 years ago, and thanks to the support of individuals like you, we continue to grow strong. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and now our host, Steve Buss. Thanks for watching and keep 'em flying.
Good evening, aviation enthusiasts, and welcome to CAF Warbird Tube. Tonight, episode number 184, Pearl Harbor, in their own words. We'll hear from two people who were there December 7th, 1941 at Pearl Harbor and get their recollections of that fateful day. Now, whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a loyal Warbird Tube fan, we're thrilled to have you with us. If you enjoy our shows, please don't forget to spread the word on your favorite social media platforms. We do appreciate it. Now, Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. To find out more about the CAF, our events, our aircraft, local units, or how you can be a part of the fun, just visit our website, commemorativeairforce.org. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the world was forever changed. For the United States, it was the beginning of a new chapter in its history. That day, Japan launched a surprise military strike on the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The attack came without any real warning, and in less than 2 hours, it altered the course of World War II. More than 350 Japanese aircraft swooped down on the unsuspecting naval base and surrounding airfields. The goal was to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet, preventing American interference with Japan's planned expansion in the Pacific. The attack was far more devastating than Japan's military planners could have imagined. The battleship USS Arizona, struck by a bomb that caused a massive explosion, sunk and killed more than 1,100 sailors. The ship remains a visible memorial to the more than 2,400 Americans who lost their lives that day. Sailors, soldiers, airmen, and civilians, all caught up in the assault. In addition to that human toll, 8 battleships were either sunk or severely damaged, along with numerous cruisers, destroyers, and aircraft. Yet, one key element that saved the U.S. Navy's strategic advantage, the aircraft carriers, were not in the Pacific Fleet's home base during that day. And of course, they would play a vital role in America's response. In addition, the attackers missed the massive fuel and oil storage facilities at Pearl Harbor, allowing the Pacific Fleet an opportunity to recover. The attack on Pearl Harbor united the American people in a way never seen before. The very next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt delivered his famous speech declaring that December 7th would be a day that would live in infamy.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
While most of the world had been at war for several years, the attack thrust the United States into the conflict, both in the Pacific against Japan and in Europe, where Nazi Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S. shortly afterward. Within days, the U.S. was mobilizing for war, and the response was swift and decisive. In the months that followed, the U.S. military pushed back against Japan, culminating in the Battle of Midway in June 1942, providing a pivotal victory that shifted the balance of power in the Pacific in the favor of the Allies. Many historians feel the Pearl Harbor attack was a defining moment in history. It was an act of aggression that galvanized a nation, leading to its emergence as a global superpower. Today, we remember the lives lost and the resilience and bravery of those who responded, ensuring that such an event would not be forgotten. On this episode of CAF Warbird Tube, we'll hear from two people who were in Hawaii that day. Two perspectives. One of a young girl seeing the attack through civilian eyes, and a different perspective from an airman who had a front row seat to the carnage of the attack. Earlier this fall, I had the honor to meet and talk with Lillian Teich at the Military Aviation Museum's show Warbirds Over the Beach in Virginia. She was just 11 years old on December 7th, 1941. As I mentioned, joining us right now is Lillian Teich. And Lillian, first of all, we are so happy to have you here at the show. Is this your first time at the show?
Yes, it is. I had no idea this was all down here, and it's been very interesting.
Good. Glad you are here. And before we get all of our flying activities started today, you have a very unique and interesting story to tell. You were there, ground zero, actually, at Pearl Harbor. So tell us a little bit about the background, how you were there, and what happened that day.
Okay, now it was not, I used to say I was from Pearl Harbor because that's where everybody congregates. But I was at Schofield. My father was one of the post chaplains, and we lived on Morris Road, 508 Morris Road. And I was an Army brat, which was very, very good at that time. And we had freedom of the post, where we could explore everything. It was safe and it was fun. And I get concerned when the children today need counselors when they move, because it doesn't take but 5 minutes to meet a new child. And so anyway, it was good. I had always had a lot of friends. And my dad was stationed at Schofield in June of 1940. So we were there on December the 7th. And of course, we had no idea what all these explosions were about. And so my dad went out and talked to somebody, and they said, "We are being attacked by the Japanese." And somebody else said, "Don't say that because that causes a panic." So my dad got him outside, and it was so. And the Zero came down our street, strafing houses. We did not find any bullet holes in our house, but they were in the 4 houses around us. And one woman said that if her maid had been taking a shower at that time, a bullet would have gone through and killed her. At any rate, so I was standing out in front of our house, and this Zero came by. And I was 11 at the time, and as he came by, I looked at him, and he looked at me, and then he went on down the street strafing houses. And I did not panic until someone's mother who was visiting panicked. And my father said, "Don't worry about it, it's okay, and God will take care of you." And so I went up to his office, which was in a 4-story building at the end of the street in the quadrangle. And he and my mother went down the streets on our street and behind, letting the families know that we were being attacked and that they should go up to my father's office, which was in this quadrangle building. And so we did. We rolled bandages and sang Christmas songs and waited to see what was going to happen. And the ambulances were streaming by from Wheeler Field, which is a part of Schofield. And a lot of damage, of course, was done there. And so what were we going to do? Well, we had a couple of canaries, and so we arranged for somebody to take care of it. And finally, the enlisted men who were on the post went in to the houses where there were pets and saw that they were fed and watered, etc. And so my father arranged for 11 buses came to our area. I always understood there were about 38 buses, but they may have been in different parts of Schofield. And so because he was the chaplain for all of this, all the buses were loaded up, and he saved the last one for us, my mother and me, and him. And we started down to Honolulu. And of course, it was blackout conditions. So my father's enlisted man, who was the only one who had a weapon the whole week we were there, he had a cellophane. Does anybody remember cellophane? Had a cellophane over the flashlight and aimed it from the driver of the bus, driver's window side, and concentrated on the center line going down. And my dad stood at the open door with another flashlight aimed at the same white ground. And that's the way we got to Honolulu. And so as we got closer to Honolulu, and it's only about even now, it's only about a 30-mile drive, we realized that Honolulu was lit up. Why was that lit up? Because, well, the blackout. Well, then as we got closer, we realized it was Pearl Harbor. So, and Pearl Harbor was very close to the highway. And so as we went by, we could see and someone said it wasn't Honolulu, it was Pearl Harbor. And so the ships were silhouetted against against the flames that were way high behind them. And then we got down to a place where the other buses, it was only a way to get into Honolulu. And so my dad said, and there was a soldier there trembling with his gun at ready and cocked. And my mother screamed, don't shoot, he's my husband, and we're women and children. And so my dad walked very carefully toward him and said, have you seen other city buses? No, he hadn't seen anything. Well, that was the only way to get to Honolulu. So 11 other buses must have gone by, and the poor kid, he was probably 18 and never had this experience. And so we were distributed to different places. Some went to private homes. A number of us, I don't know how many, a number of us were taken to the Royal School, and my mother and I took up residence under a library table for the week. And there were about 35 other people in the library, and of course they were in the classrooms and everywhere. And that's where we stayed until Friday morning when we could go back to Schofield. And it was rumored that paratroopers had landed on the North Shore, which was not true. And, there were all kinds of rumors. And there were mothers there with very, very young children, and they went to a little Japanese store opposite the school, and the Japanese there would not sell them milk. So my father and this enlisted man with a only weapon went to the store, and they did sell the mothers some milk, and so that was fine. And so then the people who made the meals for the school children let the oatmeal go bad, and a lot of people who were in the school became ill. And so that was interesting. I didn't like the oatmeal, so I didn't eat it, and I didn't get sick. So when we got back home, there was a trench in each person's front yard with a metal sheet over it, and that was our air raid shelter. And there were a couple of air raid alarms, but of course it was false. And so we survived all of that. And immediately people came to make crates. All the furniture was crated at that time. Now I think they put them in containers. So they came and crated our furniture, which took up most of the space in our living room, which was wonderful for me because I could climb all over them and have stories, and it was great. So I had my 7th grade, I guess that was it, 7th grade from September until December the 5th. And then we were evacuated in April on, I think it was Palm Sunday, and my mother and I went to live with my maternal grandparents in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I was going to tell you, what was I going to tell you after that? But anyhow, we were evacuated on Palm Sunday on the Aquitania, which was a British luxury liner before the war. And there were 600 women and children expected, and there were either 12 or 1,500 women. So in our stateroom for a couple or a small family, there were now 3 bunk beds. So there were 6 women in this stateroom. And on the lower deck were some military, and on the next deck were wives of the military, and then the rest of us. The captain was concerned that there would be a mutiny because the British people and the English had different ideas about what was cleanly. And the British were not as clean as the American crew. The wait staff in the dining room were freed criminals from England, and they had a choice when they were released. They could either go to the Russian front, or they could be on the passenger ships. And so you can imagine what the wait staff was like. And the British, I'm sure it must have been a British thing, they had a square about 12 or 18 inches square with bristles in it. I don't know whether they were a broom or what. And that's the way they cleaned the silverware between the first and the second sittings. We had a destroyer escorting us the first night, and the next morning it was gone. And of course my mother was in a panic because she understood we would have escort. Well, we were told that the Aquitania could go faster than the escort ships. So that was okay. And we zigzagged across to San Francisco. And the closer we got to San Francisco, the more the wives and their husbands decided maybe this wasn't a good thing. And so when we landed, I think we didn't land in San Francisco. We went to, I'm sure it was San Pedro. Is that right? And these women, they'd never been off the island, and they couldn't believe the tall buildings. I mean, the only tall buildings in Hawaii at that time were the Moana and Royal Hawaiian hotels. And anyway, a lot of these women went to the Red Cross for their disembark orders to wherever they were going. And the husbands left the ship, and some of them did not pick up their wives. They were just left. And we had my science teacher from high school had a son who married a girl in Hawaii. And of course, that was when these first mixed marriages came back, and he was so harassed that he went back to Hawaii and made a career. He was taught at the university and stayed there, and everything was fine. So that was the first of the war brides to come back. And now I see these older couples and I think, she was a war bride. But a lot of them stuck it out and had good marriages, but I felt so sorry for those girls. So, and then that's about it. But the main point, of course, was December the 7th.
What was it like December 8th, December 9th, 10th? What was, okay, the initial shock of the attack is over. Like you mentioned, there were rumors about paratroopers and invasion and everything else, but what was the feeling like to be a young person sort of surrounded and maybe not quite understanding what was going on, but knowing that something big is happening?
Right. Well, being only 11, I didn't see things as an adult would. And we still played together and did things. But it's very interesting. My father was an Army chaplain. And when he first went into the Army, the first assignment would have been the Philippines. and then a stateside, and then Hawaii. We went to Hawaii. No, we went to the Philippines first, then to South Dakota, which is another story, and then to Hawaii. So on December the 8th, the Japanese attacked the Philippines, and my father would not have survived that, and I know it. And the folks from the Philippines, the families from the Philippines, had been evacuated. I thought it was longer ago, but it was about a year or less, that they were evacuated from the Philippines because the military thought something was going to happen, but they didn't know what. So these families were separated for months before the attack came. And a number of these men, of course, were in that death march. And some of them did not survive. So I was very grateful. I figured that was a God thing, that we got to the Philippines first. And so then...
On to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Lillian Teich is our guest, a very special and honored guest here at Warbirds Over the Beach. Lillian, thank you for taking a few minutes to share your story with us.
You're very welcome.
And you will be in the VIP tent and kind of wandering around. And,
Yes.
All right. Well, good. Well, thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, and I appreciate the interview. So thank you.
Thank you.
And it's very vivid. It's like it happened yesterday. So, and a lot of these, no, maybe the sons of the veterans who are here, they would probably say the same thing. So, okay.
Thank you. For many years, the military personnel who served at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, were not officially recognized as veterans of World War II. They endured the horrors of the surprise attack, but they were overlooked when it came to receiving the same recognition and benefits as other World War II veterans. This lack of recognition was due to bureaucratic issues. The military didn't consider those who served at Pearl Harbor on December 7th as being in combat, given that they'd not been formally engaged in a declared war until the U.S. entered World War II on December 8, 1941. As a result, many veterans of Pearl Harbor were not granted official veteran status, nor were they eligible for the same benefits provided to those who served in subsequent battles. In 1975, the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association was founded to advocate for the acknowledgement of those who served during the attack. In the following decades, efforts to highlight their service grew stronger. And finally, in 1991, U.S. Congress passed the Pearl Harbor Survivors Medal, which authorized the award of a commemorative medal to those who had served at Pearl Harbor during the attack. The government also officially recognized survivors as veterans of World War II, granting them the same status as those who fought in later battles. For Pearl Harbor survivors, receiving their medals and formal recognition was a long-awaited acknowledgement of their sacrifice and service. This delayed recognition highlighted the ongoing efforts of veterans groups to ensure that those who endured such a pivotal moment in history would be remembered and honored appropriately. In our next segment, we'll meet a Pearl Harbor survivor and a gentleman who is very proud to wear the Pearl Harbor Survivors Medal. His name was Robert Tanner. I interviewed Robert about his experiences at the Wings Over Dallas Air Show several years ago, and a year later, Robert sat down with a film crew to recount his experiences at Pearl Harbor, and also later in the war. In talking with Robert, he shared an interesting tidbit. His 20th birthday was December 5th, but because they were on alert, he and his friends couldn't celebrate that day. But on Sunday, December 7th, they planned to celebrate at the beach. Robert told me he already had some cream sodas on ice waiting to head out when the attack began. What would have been a day of celebration quickly took a different turn. After my interview with Robert, the CAF Tora 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 reenactment took place at the show. He sat next to me, watching all that was going on. I noticed about halfway through the presentation that his legs were bouncing up and down, and I was worried that he was not okay. So, amidst the noise of the explosions and the airplanes and the pyrotechnics, I leaned over and I asked if he was all right. He said, "I'm fine. This is just like it was that day. I can't believe you do this. It's fantastic." Although he doesn't mention it, Robert was likely one of the first people to be wounded that day. Despite that, he continued working to help others throughout the day before he received treatment for his wound. Please enjoy Robert Tanner's story.
My name is Robert Tanner, and I was at Hickam Field in Hawaii on the 7th December 1941 when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, unbeknownst to us. That's the 50th anniversary medal given to us in 1991 at the 50th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and commemorating us as veterans of World War II, which Pearl Harbor survivors were not veterans of World War II until 1974. We had been on alert up until the day before the 6th of noon, the 6th of December. We went off of alert that we had been on, and for a month or more than a month. I didn't know how long because I had just got back from the Philippines from ferrying some planes over there, and we put all our gear away on Sound Friday and so forth. And naturally, we're getting ready to go on the world Sunday, and I was standing on the edge of the outside of the barracks, waiting for a couple of my buddies to come in because I was going to celebrate my birthday, which was on the 5th of December. I couldn't celebrate because I was on alert. And I was standing there, and all of a sudden I heard the roar of an aircraft engine, and I made one step down on the and turned and got a zero coming at me. And I said, I know I said it out loud, but probably nobody heard me. Damn Navy, pulling an Uber on Sunday morning again like they used to do on us. At Hickam Field, we were Hickam Field right across from Pearl Harbor. We were defense for Pearl Harbor. And I looked up, and that zero was coming in. He had dropped a bomb that hit the top of the barracks in the third floor through the window, and even went down and through the floors and blew on the first floor. The concussion come out the door of the barracks when I was standing right there, and it blew me right off the 3 steps of the barracks out onto the lawn, out on the lawn and so forth. About 30 feet out there, I stopped sliding. I had my Vinegar Joe hat, Boy Scout hat on, the way big Vinegar Joe hat, we called him at that time because of Joe Stillwell. General Stillwell loved it so much. And I never found it to this day, by the way. I lost my hat. And I was so lucky that the concussion knocked me down. And the zero was strafing at the same time, came through, and you can see the wall, the bullets on the barracks wall today. They're still there. They never took them off. Where there was certain where I was if I was standing, I'd had the whole blast as he went through, and I come to, I was out for I don't know, probably a minute or so. I don't know, not too long anyway, and I hit my head by a piece of either a concrete or shrapnel or whatever. Don't know what it is, and it was bleeding, but my shirt was all shredded. But I got up and run across the Hangar Avenue around the hangar to go around the hangar of number 3 to get to operations where I had to report for any conflict. And and I glanced over, and I saw a body on the ground near a great big trash receptacle. They were made of wood, just like the metal out there now, but this was wood. And I guess he was running to that to get in it for something, but he had been machine gunned right across the same ones that missed me, come him. He was machine gunned right across, got almost in 2 pieces. Yeah. But I got up and run around, went to operations. All of us were there, needed to be there, a lot of us. Anyway, well, we formed teams of 4 and went out to the field during the first and second raid to get the wounded that were all on the parade ground. They had run out from the barracks onto the parade ground. They were all out there. And then one of the old Chuck Middaugh, he was a great big Irishman. He had a machine gun tripod, but he wasn't on the ground. He was holding the machine gun up. He was a great big guy, about 4 axe handles across the shoulders. Great big guy. And we went through that area and everything, and got the guys in ambulances and so forth to get them out of there, wounded and so forth. And I went back to operations, and standing in front of operations, the second attack came in, and there was a great big boom, and I turned toward Pearl Harbor. I was facing port, the entrance to Pearl Harbor, and I turned back to Pearl Harbor, and all I saw was a great big ball of fire up in the air, and it was the Arizona that blew, and I think the ship was up in the air for all I know. From what I know, when it was, because it broke in two when it went back down, and the ground shook so badly that I couldn't hardly keep my balance. I damn near went over. After that, we did the Recovery Act. All those, and then at about 2:30 in the afternoon, 2:15, I guess, I finally got over to the hospital tent. The hospital had been bombed out, and they had put up a tent and everything, and walked in. And fortunately, one of the corpsmen was there, the sergeant, who was from the flight surgeon's office, and I worked with the flight surgeons all the while, because I was clearing the flight surgeons for flying time. and I said, "Fred, I got something here," and I didn't know it. In the meantime, he had reached over and got a bottle of methylate. But the methylate was a disinfectant, you know. And I didn't know. He grabbed and he poured that damn thing on my head. and I think I might went 3 feet in the air because it burned. You know? And he says, "Get that out of here." I wasn't even wounded. And after that, naturally, I went back to my plane was bombed up. It was all pieces burned up. It was caught fire and everything. And we were getting the things together. We had no planes that could take in the air after the 2 raids. So we had to get the equipment together, fix the planes that we could fix, get them in flying operation. As a matter of fact, the first plane off of Hickam that had been on Hickam never got in the air to the second day after Pearl Harbor. But all we were doing was recovery, getting, as we say, back to so-called normal. They brought some more planes in from the United States. There was 12 planes coming into the United States, the B-17s coming in for 12 of them. 4 was for Hickam, and 8 of them for Philippines. I formed a composite squadron. We got 4 planes together, and all checked out, and prepared them to deliver them to Australia, so that the Australians could learn how to fly B-17s. We left there February the 2nd, 42, for Australia. Got down to Canberra, Australia, and was training with the Australian Air Force. But they had Lancasters, British Lancasters, which is same as our B-24 actually today, and they didn't like the 17s at all, no, because first they didn't have tricycle landing gear. In May of 42, they decided they transferred the whole outfit up to Calcutta, India, to join they were turned over to the British USAF Air Force in Calcutta, India. I took them up there, delivered them, and all of a sudden we found out we'd had no way home. We were out there one morning, and the old colonel came in. He says, "Hey, any of you guys ever fly a C-47, Wounded Bird?" Yes. Dakota? C-46? Yes. Good, got a job for you. And then they loaded us in the truck, It took us all up to Assam, India, way up in the northern part of India, to airfields, and they had Goonie birds. They had all 150 planes on that runway up there. And we had to go and check them out and find out if some of them make a flight. And you know what the flight was? Over the Himalayas to Kunming, China, supplying the flying tigers. From Assam, India to Kunming, China. We had to find out, well, you think it's going to make it? Okay, we'll try it. My last flight was on the 14th of July, when the Flying Tigers were turned over to the American Air Force with General Chenault. Well, General Chenault, they pinned the stars on General Chenault that day with General Shanghai Tech there. We had landed, and they wouldn't let us up to the operations. They wouldn't let us on the field. Just taxi over to the other side of the lake. And we were watching with field glasses, the ceremony of General Chenault getting his stars pinned on. And that was my last flight. Got back to Assam, and finally they found a C-54 that brought us back to. I went back to Brisbane, Australia. Got the new B-17s, and went up to Port Moresby, and operated out of Port Moresby from there on out during the war.
Didn't fly anymore?
Sorry?
You didn't fly anymore?
Oh yeah, we got new airplanes, and matter of fact, I got back just in time to go to bomb Guadalcanal. We had just got back from China, India, if you want to call it that, and got our planes ready. We got our new planes at Port Moresby, and we went out on the 23rd of. Well, it was the first troop landing at Guadalcanal. The Navy was there to bombard the island and the beaches, et cetera, and we were to come in 4 hours after that for our bomb run, and we did. We bomb runned over it. By that time, the troops had got to shore, got on the west side of it, and there was landing field, what they call West Field, and my tail was shot up. My ailerons were shot up. And we landed over there. Was there 2 days because we stole some parts off another airplane, fixed ours, and took off and went back to Port Moresby. But normally the Navy planes would get there first before we did. So we were after the fact. As a matter of fact, most of our bombs were dropped on the end of the old airfields. They're there, the Japanese airfields, in that areas, because all of the other bombing was done by the Navy. The Marines, I should say. Marines.
Marines, yeah. And you were taking ground fire?
Yeah. It had to be ground fire because there was no airplanes, the Japs in the air at all. Because I guess they got caught with their pants down. Well, they didn't have much aircraft there anyway. But the bombers, the Navy got in and shelled that place from dawn, I think from dawn till 9 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Constant. And then the troops came in on their APCs and so forth. And we were to become 4 hours after the end of the Navy bombing. Well, we had been bombing Macon Island in the New Britain area and so forth. Our mission was, after the bombing, we separated from the task force. I was in a composite squadron, so we didn't stay with it. We were assigned to any of the missions with a second mission. We had been on our second mission route for about 2 hours, 3 hours. Then my crew chief yelled at me, said, "Mr. Tanner," I was a flight officer, so he called me Mr. Tanner, and said, "One of the bomb hooks came loose." in Bombay. And I can't get it back up there. He says, I can't get it to hook. I went back to Bombay to see what was going on, and I found out what was wrong. So we got it back up there, and I was coming back to the cabin, and I don't know why. A premonition, something hit me, and I reached over and got the back of my seat and my pilot seat, and reached over and got my wheel, and I whapped it over left and pushed it as far as I could go because I was hanging over the end of the seat. And my lead plane blew up in front of me. If I'd have been level, I'd have gone with him. Now, why he blew up, I don't know to this day. We didn't send any puffs of ack, or shrapnels or anything. But he blew. And luckily I was down it, and I got over, I was over this way and almost slipping off the wing, almost wing over. And I yelled at Charlie, pull her back right and give me all the power on the left engines, or the left engines, both engines. Give me everything you got. And we finally straightened out again. And up, and I had some shrapnel, something from the lead plane got us. So I lost, after engines went out, 3 engines went out. Actually, in the end, 2 engines, two right engines went out. And then my outboard on the right came in. My number 1 engine, thank goodness, was running, and I had electric generators. And but I flew that thing. It was 790 miles back to the island of New Guinea, and I made it almost to the beach. I was running out of fuel and running out of power because I'd come down from, if I remember, we were flying about 13.5, 13.6 at that time when we got hit. And I kept that thing airborne until I got down to probably a little under 2,000 feet before I was starting to sink by itself. So I gave all the power to that right engine, everything we had. They were up against the firewall by then, the throttles, and it took us the rest of the day, but I was still settling. So I didn't have to worry much about cutting off the power before it hit, that's for sure. Put it in the water, and fortunately, I was doing fine until it got darn wave come up in front of me, and I smacked it. I was dragging my tail at that time, luckily, and it smacked me and stopped me dead. My radio operator, I told him to, strap yourself in, but he wasn't. He was yelling Mayday, and standing up, and he hit the rib of the plane, and it took a 4-inch stretch to touch all of his back, out of the back, 4-inch wide down and everything. But luckily he fell, and he fell near the door, our exit door, where the rafts, and 2 rafts when I hit the water first, they had jetted 2 of our rafts. The boys had jettisoned, ready to go. When I hit the water, woof, they all went out. But it wasn't too deep, but boy, did we hit. And finally we got into the water, and they got me out. I went, my right foot caught in my rudder pedal. Our left foot, I couldn't get it out. And it was I couldn't get my seat belt off because I was, the flip buckle, it was caught on the buckle of I still had my woolies on, my big woolly, and I couldn't get it off. And finally it broke at the end of the seat, finally, with the pressure. And I went out through the windshield, left, scraped my face and everything it took me. And I landed out in the water. And unfortunately I had my woolies on, so I damn floated. And the boys put me in and got me on a raft, and they walked to shore, less than half a mile actually. Yeah, It was pretty shallow all the way out there. My radio operator actually died later. We carried him in the jungle for about 10 days looking for a native village that we had a typographical map only, but how to locate the village wasn't there. It was an old map that some British chaplain made that had been there back in the 30s. As a matter of fact, the Australian spotter, and they had spotted us coming in. And they had got word out with their radios. But all there was Morai Indians was always in there. Headhunters. And they were headhunters because when the village that we finally got to, they were friendly American. Where there was Japs, but there was about 10 Japanese heads hanging on a clothesline, like a clothesline up in that village. Because the Japs, when they got there, were taking care of women. They'd taken their women, raping them and so forth. So they'd hang them up, preserve their heads. Well, I put some in the water, but there was nothing to it.
Nothing to it. What do you mean?
No, you walk away.
Just walk away.
Walk away with a bloody nose, maybe. Or some broken finger.
Thank you for joining us tonight as we remember Pearl Harbor. As the first-person accounts of that day fade away, it's up to all of us to keep the memory of the day that will live in infamy and all the days that followed alive, so we may never repeat them. Our special thanks to the Military Aviation Museum in Virginia Beach for helping facilitate our interview with Lillian Teich. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on tonight's episode or any ideas you have for future topics. Feel free to drop us a line at media@cafhq.org. And if you like tonight's show, please share it across your social media platforms. And remember, subscribe and click that bell icon on YouTube to get notifications when new episodes of Warbird Tube are posted. Until next time, I'm Steve Buss, wishing you blue skies and tailwinds. Have a great night.